The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon. This is our second spin-off of The Walking Dead since it ended last year. And I gotta say, man, this is like a different vibe for Walking Dead spin-offs at this point. Walking Dead is, I think it can reach a different level now in its story. And with these shorter seasons, probably the higher budgets, and it just seems like it's a lot more thought out and cared for than it was with previous Walking Dead spin-off shows with World Beyond or Fear the Walking Dead. God, do not watch that. But the Dead City, I really liked Dead City. It was incredible. I even think Dead City was better than some of the stuff in the final season of The Walking Dead, and I think this show right here also has that potential. I'm not going to say that yet. It's only been one episode, but I think now it's just called Daryl Dixon. This is the outlier of all the other shows because we're going to have Dead City. We're going to have The Ones Who Live. It's a weird name, but that's the Rick and Michonne one. And then this is Daryl Dixon. So this is the only show that's titled after the main character, the actual main character of the show, which is fine, whatever. It works. Especially if, it's obviously around Daryl. So, I mean, it works. A lot of TV shows and things do this now, but here we are, the next Walking Dead spinoff, basically coming out now around the time when the main show would be on. So it's kind of cool to now see The Walking Dead still back in its kind of general time area of release in the year. So let's start it out. So Daryl, we all know, okay, the first 10 minutes did launch our early on AMC Plus like a month or two ago, and I was able to watch that like a month or two ago, and obviously this is like the first 10 minutes, so I've seen all this before, but there's not really a whole lot that happens, and there's a whole mystery of how Daryl Dixon ends up from the Commonwealth in the United States all the way to France. How the hell does that even happen? And, initially it plays out like, oh, he just washed up on shore, and he shows up tied to a boat. Like, that is the most ridiculous thing that you could probably think of, and I think initially it kind of is played off that way because it's like, well, obviously there's a lot more to the whole story, because how does he get to he can't just float across the ocean to get to France. So that's obviously not what's going to happen. He probably ended up getting tossed off this boat very close to shore in some way and managed still to somehow float to land. So he washes ashore, cut to Daryl walking in a new land. It's all new to him. He's like, this is not home. This is definitely not home. We're in France. He's seeing all the road signs, all French. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. And there's a whole story of how Daryl ended up getting here that I think they're going to slowly uncover through the season. And that's especially teased in the teaser for the next episodes. So Daryl, he ends up kind of wandering around a little bit. He finds a boat of a previous family who ended up dying eventually in the apocalypse. He listens to the little messaging recorder that this guy left his little own diary, I suppose, in the recorder, how his family was trying to survive, and they were trying to see if maybe France would have something, and ultimately, like, the whole family ended up dying. His wife died. It's not really important, but it's kind of like a beginning thing to show that, like, yeah, the world went to shit and everyone's lives got destroyed in this apocalyptic world. And this is kind of bringing you right back in, like, this is the world we're in. After he does all that, Daryl kind of finds some supplies and stuff around the boats. He ends up recording his own little message, and this is a little message that we heard in the trailers about, I am Daryl Dixon, I am from the Commonwealth, that's in America, and I don't know how I got here, and I was out on a mission, and obviously we know his mission was to find Rick, and I don't know if, it kind of sounds like this message is intended for the ones he knows and loves, like Judith and Carol and everyone back at home. And that is someone we will see a little bit later as a flashback or hallucination, whatever Daryl's having. But his whole mission was to find Rick. That is what happened at the end of The Walking Dead. He rode off with his motorcycle and he found out that Rick is alive and he's going to go find him. That was his story. And he's obviously gotten sidetracked. So we got some really cool visuals in this show. Again, with all these new Walking Dead spin-offs, they're finally venturing outside of the very bland, gray woods. running around in the woods every single episode that looked the exact same every single episode. The Walking Dead did that notoriously all the way into the final season. And, you know, we did some interesting stuff with the Commonwealth and the soldiers and stuff like that, but Walking Dead is finally exploring something more different. It's just much visually different now. They literally did film in France. They filmed this whole show in France. I know with Dead City they filmed it in Manhattan, so like we're really getting some different type of visuals for these Walking Dead shows finally. We're in new places, new things, new walkers. And this is a very fresh take for The Walking Dead. I'm just super happy that we're finally seeing this, because it's been so long since we've left that one little bubble area for The Walking Dead, you know. Yeah, I don't even want to count the other spin-offs like World Beyond Fear. They're not that good. We're finally venturing out with our main characters that we care about into these different vast stories that we can now get to in these areas that are totally unexplored yet. So I think I really like that, and we're literally in Europe now. We're over there now. So we're going to see what kind of walkers they have, what kind of different people there are, and how the world's kind of operating there, the remaining people. Daryl, he finds like an abandoned warehouse, and he kind of scopes things out a little bit. He gets attacked by some walkers. Obviously, that's what happens within these shows. And he immediately learns that these aren't normal walkers. And at the end of The Walking Dead, they did do a variant walker where it started picking up bricks, it started climbing things, and I don't know if we'll touch on that specific type here, but we're getting some variant walkers now. It doesn't really seem to be like a specific singular walker that's affected. It does seem to be a very variant type of walker that is common around these areas, because it's mentioned later that these are called burners. So, yeah, no, very creative. But these things, they grabbed Daryl on the arm, and it immediately started completely burning his arm like it's super hot. Now, I don't know, it might be like an acidic burn or something like that. I don't know if this thing's like when he touch someone, it's a big acid burn on his arm. I don't know how it works, but every time he like killed the walkers, they like sizzled and stuff. It was really weird. It's like they were super hot or something, but I don't know if it's like an acid or what's inside of these walkers. I don't know how it happened or how they evolved to be this way, but you know, I'm glad we're exploring the different types of walkers, and I think we're going to see more different types as well. I know at the end of World Beyond they did tease something in France with this new hyper expressive and violent walker that is super quick, and maybe we'll see that in this show too. But yeah, we have burners now. So Daryl, after he realized what happened, like he's seeing this new walker, he's like, oh my god, here we go again. All this crazy shit that we got to deal with in our crazy world. And then we cut to the opening credits, and I love the opening credits of these new spin-offs. They're just so creative, and they just have their own feeling now. It's like these are true Walking Dead spin-offs. Dead Cities was incredible, and this is really unique and interesting in its own. I think I like Dead Cities a little more, but this is still kind of in that same type of vibe where this is still The Walking Dead, and it still feels like a now spin-off and continuation of the main show. So we got a very interesting creative intro here with Daryl. You can see Paris there. Some interesting shots of Daryl just kind of like sitting over the city. And yes, it's a very interesting stylistic type of intro that still fits within, it feels like a Walking Dead intro. And I think that's real well done. We got back to Daryl kind of tending to his burn on his arm, and he's got someone watching him, as he's already got somebody keeping an eye on him. He's hardly been there, and he's already got people watching him. So there's this lady up on the hill, and she's watching him, and he doesn't really know who it is, and he's just kind of trying to figure out where he is. So again, to the visuals of this show, I mean, you can see even this shot right here. I think I don't know if I like these visuals more or if I like the city landscape more with Dead City. I think I still like this more. I think the barren plain forest that we always saw in Walking Dead got really old because it always looked the same. In this, you can see it's just, you know, you got all these different structures and these abandoned places in France, and I think it's just super it's interesting. It's just a different feeling now, and it doesn't need to be like in the city to have a different feeling. And we can see that in this show. So Daryl's kind of wandering around. He's running into a bunch of people already, of course. So he runs into two people, this old man who is apparently blind, and this lady who speaks French, but she also speaks a little bit of English. Initially, Daryl thinks they're there to help him and kind of trade off and help him out. He says, I don't speak French that well. They kind of sit around for a little bit. Then they get ambushed by these new military type people, because there's always like a military type of group out there to have the guns and whatever to run around and cause trouble. And we had that in Dead City, and we have that now in this show as well. So there's this militant group that is kind of running around. I don't know how big they are. At the end of the episode, it might only be one guy. I don't really know. But there's this group of guys that are running around and causing trouble, of course. They kind of ambush Daryl and this lady and old man. And of course, Daryl gets the drop on them, kills them all, and the lady actually ends up killing the leader guy of this two-man group. So they kill both the guys, and initially Daryl is like, okay, thank you, cool. And then Daryl also, he gets shot on the side of his face, so he's also wounded now on the side of he's not having a good time in France so far, that's for sure. So just as he thinks, okay, the fight's over, then he gets betrayed by this lady and the old man, who is not actually blind. So they're just some thieves, and they knock Daryl out with a bat or whatever that stick he's got in his hand, and they try to rob Daryl. But of course, that lady that was watching Daryl earlier is there to save the day. So that's where we get into the bigger chunk of where Daryl's story is kicking off with this new group that he finds, which, Walking Dead likes to kill a lot of people. Happens a lot in this episode. So before that, though, Daryl's obviously taken. He's still wounded. He's got knocked out, and he is kind of hallucinating now. So we get to hallucinate. We get to see a scene of Judith. So we do get to see Judith again. And we do get to see Carol. I think these are shots from the Walking Dead finale episode. I think this is when he was leaving off on his bike. I don't know if there's any new shots here of them. I think they're old though. But we do get to see Judith and Carol again. I know we're going to see Carol next season for this show. There's already a season 2 of this show being made. I think they're even filming it already, actually. And we already see Carol on set. So she will be in season 2. It was initially planned to be a Daryl and Carol show. And then Melissa McBride, she ended up saying that she didn't want to jump on board right away after finishing this massive show of The Walking Dead. But she will jump on to season 2. I don't know how much of the show she'll be on, but I know we'll see her again. So don't worry, we will see Carol again. Judith, though, I don't know if we'll see her again. I mean, if we're going back to Carol somehow, maybe we'll see Judith. I don't know. I don't know how many characters we'll see from the Commonwealth Alexandria area, since we're kind of just away from them now. So we'll see where that goes. It's a long ways away, probably. Right now, though, the focus is Daryl. And he wakes up to being, cauterized with his burn, because they're basically, his wound is infected, or it's gonna get infected, and the only way that they said the only way to really get it healed and get it healing is to cauterize the thing. And then they show that, and he's in this big group of this room with a bunch of nuns. And you see these characters in the trailer, and it's super strange. It's a very different vibe than, say, Dead City for sure. And this is kind of where you kind of get your feeling for the show of what this show's kind of gonna be like. And Daryl is caught up in this group of nuns in the apocalypse in France. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. So they're the ones who helped Daryl. And while Daryl's there, he speaks to the lady that did help him. I think her name's Isabel. I don't remember a lot of the names here, because a lot of the names are very different and unique. And some of them I'm just not going to remember right away. But I think her name is Isabel. And I think she's going to be a main character going forward for this show, which is kind of cool. I think she's fine. We get to see Daryl interact with her a little bit. Just kind of learn what this place is and who these people are. And she also knows about Daryl because she ended up listening to his little recording on his recorder. So initially, right away, we're kind of establishing a character relationship type way between this lady and Daryl. They're now interacting. So obviously it's developing these are two characters that are going to be with each other through the rest of this show. They're going to be following with each other with a few other characters as well. At the end of the episode, they're going to be like main characters of this show. That's kind of what we're setting up. Like, she is, out of all these nun characters that we see, she is the main character of them. So she's like one of the main new characters. We get to see Daryl looks out the window and he sees this boy who's running around the fields and wherever this place that they're living in. And he sees this boy and he's like, who's the kid? And this is a kid who is kind of just raised by them because his parents had died. So he's just kind of there. And he's kind of curious on who this kid is. He's kind of mysterious. And I think they're kind of doing this thing, this big trope that's happening in a lot of TV shows lately, where it's like you're pairing up the older, tougher character that we've kind of known or do know or whatever, and they're going to team him up with a kid and throw the kid in with him. They did it in Dead City too with Negan and Ginny. They did it in like Star Wars stuff too with The Mandalorian and Baby Grogu. I know they're doing a lot of that. It's just this big trope that's starting to happen, and I don't know how far it's going to go in this, but it's kind of similar again. I don't know if I like it because we're just so used to it at this point. But we'll get to that. So we're continuing to tease what happened to Daryl, because Daryl, we're not going to find out what happened to him right away. It's going to be something that becomes unfolding through this show, because they're very clearly setting up that they don't want to tell you right away. We're going to slowly find out how the hell Daryl got to France. We don't really know much yet, but we do get this shot of someone floating in the water. I don't know if that's Daryl or if it's somebody else, but we did get like kind of like a hallucination flashback to that. And then Daryl is just kind of getting cleaned up. He's getting all healed up, and he's talking to Isabel again. He's just kind of learning about the place. He's telling her about him. We get to see Daryl explore the area a little bit too, and he walks into this big weaponry area. So they got plenty of weapons. These nuns are not like afraid to just go all out, just go crazy and attack and kill people if they need to, which I kind of like. It's kind of cool. And then we got a shot of Daryl looking into a different room. There's a different room off to the side where there is this radio. And obviously immediately he's like, okay, is this thing working? I need to, can I use it, and can I try to use it? Because obviously he wants to contact home if he can. I don't know if he could, but he wants to try. He wants to try contacting somebody because he's like stuck here. So that is something they established. I'm thinking we might do it later. I don't really know, because we at the end of the episode we might not stay in this place, so I don't know if they brought the radio with them or not, but it is something that he wants to do. He does want to reach contact. So again, we're cutting back to this kid. I don't remember his name yet. I'm sure it'll come to me at some point, but he is like this kid character that's going to be alongside Daryl. Immediately, like the first big scene we see with him, he's trying to mimic Daryl and be all cool like Daryl, and I think it's kind of weird. Like, this kid out of nowhere is just like mimicking Daryl and like admiring Daryl. It's kind of strange, because like, who is this kid? Like, why do we care about this kid? So he comes up to him and he talks to him a little bit. Right now, I think this kid is going to be following Daryl basically along with him the whole show. I think that's just how it's going to go. I don't know if I like it. Again, it's just strange, because it's just a trope we've seen in different shows and stuff before. And I don't know if I really want to watch it again. Like, I'm sure it'll be fine, but maybe send Daryl off to do something else on his own. I'd rather have that. We do cut back to the thieves that actually attacked Daryl. I didn't think we'd actually see them again, but they are just kind of wandering around down the road. You know, they robbed Daryl. They kind of ran away as the lady saved him. So we do run into them again, but then they run into this group. So this is the group. This is like the rest of them. That group, the two guys that attacked Daryl earlier. This is the rest of them. And there's like this leader guy. I don't know his name either yet. I'm going to have to remember it. But he's got like a tattoo on the right side of his face. And he's looking for his brother. His brother was one of the two men that were attacked and killed. So he's asking them, where are these two men? Have you seen these two men that we have not seen? They're missing. He asks them, and then he's not really compliant. And as I said, The Walking Dead just likes to really kill a lot of people. They just have no problem just straight up killing people for almost no reason. It just happens. So the older man's not as compliant, kind of. So he just kills the old man, takes the lady with him to go find out what happened. Again, I don't know if you really needed to. I guess it's just a way to show that once again we have this bad guy out there running around. He's so ruthless. He's so bad. He's gonna kill everybody in his path. It's not really intimidating at this point because The Walking Dead's had so many characters like that. It's like, you're going to have to show me a little more. This character is probably one of the less interesting things of this show so far, is because he's so generic. He's the bad guy. He's the bad guy running around doing mean things with his group of thugs. It's like, whatever, you know. So we got back, and Daryl ends up finding out that these nuns have got their deceased dead walker priest just like in a cage somewhere, and this goes back to Herschel with The Walking Dead's the main Walking Dead show, with Herschel and the farm and the barn. It's kind of that similar thing again, where like there's always these characters that always try to worship or keep these walkers around and keep them alive, think they can like come back and revive them and they can save them in some way. It's like, no, they're dead, and they're just keeping a dead walking corpse in a cage. And it's kind of silly, and you see it over and over again, but we're doing it again. And after Daryl sees that, he's like, I'm out of here. This place is crazy. This place is nuts. So he goes back to the armory and he starts to pick up some weapons. And this is when we start to get to really weird stuff. Isabel, she goes back to him and she's going on about how, like, you know, you are the one to save this kid. This kid is the one who is going to save the world, and he is like this savior. That it's some mystical, like, it's like religious stuff, like, in a way that they're throwing into this whole, like, this religious, this group of nuns. They think that this kid that's with them is going to go to this certain place. They're like, this whole path that this kid needs to get to, that priest was initially trying to figure out before he died, that this kid needs to get to this certain place, and he's going to be the one to save the world somehow. And it's just, it was kind of weird because it's like they didn't really explain it that well, and it kind of sounded more unrealistic more than anything, and it was kind of silly. It was kind of funny to watch Daryl just kind of like, yeah, okay, sure, as he's like grabbing a bunch of weapons to get the hell out of there because these people are crazy. And as he's doing that, he's like, yeah, I'm done. We cut back to our new villain guy, generic villain guy. He sees that his brother's dead. Super upset. He's asking the lady what happened, and he's after an American man. So he now knows that there's an American man out running around, and he's the one that killed his brother. Very deep storytelling. I don't really like this story that much. It's kind of just like you needed somebody there to have Daryl fight. So Daryl, he leaves. He initially leaves, but he doesn't get too far, and he immediately sees that group. Is like, what is it, 4 or 5 people? They go in there, they go towards the nuns' location to ask them where the hell this American man is, because there's been this sign that's been placed around all over the place, and Daryl had it with him as in that same area where his brother died. So he saw the poster there, so now he thinks that they're involved. So this bad guy, he's going to go after the nuns. He's going to ask them what the hell's going on. Where is this man? Do you know where this American man is? And of course, Daryl is going to turn around and go help. So as he's leaving to just leave and get out of there, he's going to do his thing, and he's going to turn around. He's going to go help them and figure out what's going on, because obviously that is a little sketchy. So they enter the area, and immediately they're running around trying to figure things out, barge into their place, and figure out what's going on. Isabel actually places the kid into a room and tells him to lock this door once I leave so that they do not find you. So immediately when I leave this door and leave the room, lock it right away. And he doesn't do that. We'll get to that. But so again, he's holding up the sign. This is the sign that Isabel had been placing around the area. And this is obviously the sign, the note that he saw near the area where his brother died. So now he's like wondering, do you know where that man is that had this? And do you know where that man is so I can find him and probably want to kill him? So we come back to the kid, and this is where I say, like, he should have locked the door. This dumb kid, he stood there. We cut back to him, and he's still standing in the same spot. As this bad guy, as our villain guy is running around the area, and he's by the door, walking into the room, the armory room. He's by the door about to find out where he is, and he still hasn't locked the door. So he has to walk up to the door and hit the lock and make a clicking noise as our new villain guy is right there by the door. Why didn't you lock the door right when she left the room? I don't know. I thought it was kind of silly. But before he can get in the room, his men end up signaling that they found something, and they ended up finding that the priest guy is literally locked up as a dead walker. And you can even see the captions right here. What are you doing? Keeping this beast here like this. Obviously, this dead walker priest is very important. It's a very important person to everyone there. So this kid, he ends up running out of the room, and he's like freaking out because he doesn't want them to kill the walker. So the kid ran out, and immediately these guys wanted to take the kid away. It's like, who is this kid? Why is he here with you? And because they were trying to keep him hidden because nobody knew about him. So why is this kid here with you? We're to take him away. And as they're trying to take him away, Daryl shows up. He throws a spear into the guy's back that was trying to take him, and it ignites a fight with Daryl and this new villain of ours. And immediately this whole fight, initially it just kicks off an entire fight between these nuns and this militant group running around, and it's a big bloodbath. Nobody's going to live through this besides our main characters, of course. So Daryl is fighting our new guy. Again, I'm sorry that I don't remember his name, but our new bad guy. They get into a little scuffle. Daryl kills another one of his men, and Daryl chases after him with his gun. He shoots him a few times, but he does chase off our new threat, and he gets away on his own. So he's like the only guy left now. The only guy left is that leader, the leader of our little militant group, and he gets away. Daryl ran out of bullets. Of course he did. And he gets away. So Daryl has a new threat now. There's a guy after him. Of course there is. I guess he needed to set up a threat somehow to Daryl because he's going to go on this journey throughout France to basically bring this kid to wherever he needs to go. So Daryl re-enters the area, and you can obviously see the bloodbath that happened. Everyone's basically dead. He shoots down one more walker. You get the coolest shot of the episode is him holding up this gun and shooting the last walker. I think that was probably the best shot of the show right here, the first episode. It looked really cool, just him holding the gun up, all Daryl-like. Daryl walks back into the room. The older nun lady ends up dying, and there's like 2 of the nuns left, and then the kid. That's it. So that's literally our group at the end of the episode. It's just Daryl, the kid, and the 2 nuns, with Isabel, and I don't know the other lady's name, but there's another nun there with them. At the end, they burn their bodies, I believe. They sit around the fire, and Daryl finally says, yeah, I will help you. Because obviously, where they want to get this kid is like some ship port place. And I think Daryl also sees that as a place he can maybe get his way back home. Because, if he's able to sail back home, he can get home. Like, that seems pretty reasonable. So I guess he'll help the kid, and then he'll get to a place where he'll probably be able to help himself. So he agrees. He will help them. He will bring this kid to wherever they want him to go. And that's where the story will pick up with Daryl. So at the end, we do see our new threat guy as well. I don't know his name yet. Again, I'm sorry. But we do see him kind of staring off in the distance, all mad and angry. And I think it's just funny because he's so generic as a villain so far. And I have no care for him. He's just going to be an obstacle in the way for Daryl. And I actually think the stuff they did at the end of the episode is far more interesting than this guy. I think he's just very bland. So we cut to Le Havre, northern France. I think this might be the dock area that they were initially talking about where Daryl needs to get. But there's this big ship here in France that is docked in France. And they're talking about some event that has happened. So there's this lady that walks up with a few soldiers. And she walks up to this captain of this ship that just docked. And she walks up and she's wondering what the hell happened here. There is someone who escaped from this captain guy. And we realize that we don't really know much has happened yet. But we realize that there's a prisoner or someone that escaped and fought through and escaped from this captain. And this captain thinks he dealt with him. They threw him overboard on a boat. And that name was Dixon, DARYL DIXON. So there is some sort of scuffle that is revealed here from this weird captain in this ship that docked at this port. And this is the bigger story here. So this is the story we're going to end up finding out later throughout the season here. What happened to Daryl? Like, how did he get to France? What scuffle did he get into? Probably back in America at home. that ended up bringing him here. And this is probably with this ship that ended up bringing Daryl. This ship that we see here at the very end probably brought Daryl to France, and then he ended up getting thrown off at the very end and then washed up shore. So this is a whole storyline I think is super fascinating, a lot more fascinating than that random generic villain guy that we met earlier. This lady and this whatever organization or group that she's part of could be super interesting. I mean, we don't know what the hell is going on in France or the rest of the world, really, besides like America with like the CRM stuff and the Commonwealth, all that. We know about that stuff, but we don't know what the hell, we don't know what's going on other places in the world. And I think this could be super fascinating. So Daryl is like public enemy number one now for these people, for this other guy, and now he has a new mission instead of finding Rick. That's where we leave off with this show. Look, there's a lot that happened in this episode. I think the entire style, again, it's very different than Dead City, but it feels still so much more fresh than the main show. And I'm glad we're exploring new places and new types of stories, new showrunners, new everything. It's all these new different shows exploring the universe of The Walking Dead, and I think this will be better. I don't know how many viewers this new stuff will bring in. I hope it brings up viewers, because I think this stuff is very promising, and I like the quality of these shows too. It just feels better. You know, it doesn't feel like a pumping out 16 episodes each season for Walking Dead until we don't know when it's going to end. Walking Dead's done now. The main show's done. We're following a few singular characters now into a wider world of The Walking Dead. And I think this may even be setting up for a future of Walking Dead stuff without Rick Grimes, because I don't know how much more of Rick Grimes we're going to see. I think we're getting close to maybe wrapping his story up with that new show. I think we're going to wrap his story up maybe. So if that happens, if they want to keep doing Walking Dead stuff, which they don't need to, but if they want to, this may be the way to go. And I think I like it so far. I do. But that's Daryl Dixon episode 1. Quite a bit happened, but we set up his story. We know where he is now. We kind of got a few glimpses of what maybe happened with Daryl, but we don't know yet, so it keeps us interested. We set up another antagonist with that other guy. It's kind of generic. It's like whatever, but I like the vibe of it, and it's very different from what The Walking Dead's had. Again, as I said with Dead City as well, it's just a very different vibe, and I think The Walking Dead really just needed a fresh start with a new story, totally. With new characters, with maybe a few we know, like Daryl, obviously, but with a bunch of new characters that we don't know that are important to the story. And I think it can be really good. I think these next 5 episodes, 6 episodes again, just like Dead City, I think it's going to be something really cool, and I'm excited.